Why effective research is the key. The importance of knowing your perfect prospect. Earlier, you were introduced to a couple of old-style advertising resources that highlighted both the theory and the practicalities of advertising offline in the past. What we are now going to do is move this on a stage by looking at resources that are more focused on online advertising before demonstrating how you use your research results to create highly effective sales copy. To do this, I'm going to imagine that as your first assignment or commission, you've been asked to write a sales page for a digital information product focused on the presently booming acai berry weight loss market. This happens to be a product that someone else has created in this hypothetical case, but the principles of research and writing would be exactly the same as if it was your own product. Having an example to use when demonstrating how to research your market properly is extremely important, because when you create sales copy, you always do so with a very specific project and objective at the forefront of your mind. When you write sales copy, your sales page must be designed to appeal or talk to the kind of people who are most likely to buy the product for which you are writing the copy. To take this one stage further still, many professional copywriters recommend that you should research your market until you have a very clear idea of exactly who the person is that is most likely to buy the product. Once you have done so, you then produce your own identikit picture of the ideal individual customer for that product. By having a clear picture of your ideal prospect, it becomes much easier to write effective copy with this single individual firmly fixed in your mind's eye, rather than trying to write in a way that appeals to the faceless, amorphous mass that is the market. Isolating one individual perfect prospect usually works incredibly well, because, as when you are speaking to another person face to face, it is always easier to make what you're saying a perfect match for the needs of the individual than it is to say something that is 100% matched to the requirements of a large group of individuals. This is something that I always do, and when I have my perfect prospect in mind, I raise it another notch by searching for and printing out an image of someone who looks very close to being the person I have pictured in my mind. I then stick this as close to my monitor as possible, so that every time I sit down to work on the copy, I never forget this person at whom every word I write will be aimed. So, the first research step is to establish exactly what kind of person makes up the target market for the product for which you are writing the copy. The exact information that you need to create your perfect identikit picture will vary from case to case and situation to situation. But the following are some of the more obvious factors that you should consider when establishing who your individual perfect prospect is: age, gender, family situation, income, location, and any other interests. You also need to establish whether there is any money being spent in the market that you are writing copy for, even though this is the kind of research that the product creator should have done well before deciding whether it was worth making the product or not. It helps you to establish how hard your copy is going to have to work to generate sales. Although in the early days it is unlikely that you are going to be in a position to do this, after you have established yourself as a recognized copywriting expert, there may be situations where you turn down a commission because your research indicates that there is no market for the product in question. You might do this based on research into whether there is any money in the market. In my experience, it is far more profitable in the long run to be selective about the work you do than it is to accept everything that comes across your table, especially if instead of accepting a flat fee for your work, you are being paid based on results, which is something I will return to later. By the time you are in a position to be selective, you will also have a reputation to protect. So sometimes accepting an assignment for a product that is going to be very difficult to sell is not going to help your business in the long run. In the long term. Consequently, Having the capacity to research whether there is money being spent in the market is vitally important. There is one other factor that you need to consider as well, an intangible that nevertheless has the capacity to dictate whether your sales copy is extremely successful or far less so. This is the fact that no matter what market or niche you are working in, the people who populate that market will have a common language, a jargon or argot that is only known and used by insiders. In my experience, less knowledgeable marketers who are attempting to get into a new niche for the first time commonly make the mistake of not understanding or appreciating that in every market sector or niche there is a specific form of language that differentiates those who are in the know from outsiders. Because they do not understand this, they market using outsider language, in other words, ordinary everyday English, and their sales results are poor or non-existent as a direct result. Remember your perfect prospect? Well, he or she is undoubtedly an insider who uses the special jargon that only insiders know. It therefore follows that if you really want to get your sales message through to this prospect in the most powerful and effective way, you have to learn the insider way of speaking to do so. As a simple demonstration of how all-pervasive niche jargon is, you would probably think that if you are going to buy seeds to plant in your garden, understanding the information on the label would be child's play. If so, this Seed Packet Jargon Buster page will probably help change your mind. Seed Packets Explained. Bewildered by the jargon on the back of seed packets? Here's a list of what the words and expressions mean. Seeds are sown, plants are planted. Transplants and seedlings are small, young plants. Germinate equals when the seed starts to grow and develop a root and a stem. Under glass, a cover of some kind to protect the seeds or plants from inclement weather. Examples: bottle cloches, cold frames, and greenhouses. In heat, a heated area for growing in. It helps seeds germinate, most often needed for crops, such as tomatoes, that originate in warm countries. Drill, shallow Y-shaped trench, to sow the seed in. Often the depth is given, such as a drill 1.5 centimeters deep. Use the corner of a rake or the tip of a trowel. Flat-bottom drill, shallow trench, but fat or U-shaped, not Y-shaped, often used for sowing peas in. This is just one niche market example, but every niche or market sector is the same. Hence, it is simple. You have to learn the language. Your essential research portfolio. To start putting together your identikit perfect prospect, the first thing you need to establish are factors like age, gender, and so on. The first step towards building up this picture is to find other websites in the market in which you have been commissioned to write sales copy. In my example, the acai berry market. To find these sites, run a standard Google search using your main search term to locate other associated sites. What you're trying to do is build a short list of half a dozen sites that are specifically focused on the market for which you are thinking of writing copy. Consequently, results that represent individual pages of a site like Wikipedia or Amazon.com are no use to you. It is only the subject-specific sites as highlighted in the previous screenshot that you can meaningfully research. However, checking out some of the related searches at the bottom of the page can sometimes help to find additional sites if you cannot locate half a dozen suitable sites on the first couple of results pages. What you do next is head over to quantcast.com to study the demographics of the audience who use each of these sites. Sites. Investigating at least a handful, as the demographics for each individual site will be slightly different. Thus, by investigating more than one site, you build up a more accurate composite picture of the market for this type of product than you will if you research just one site alone. Quantcast is a site where there is a huge amount of information available about the audience for millions of websites. Although not every site on the net has been quantified, you will sometimes find that the information is an estimate rather than an accurate quantified result. Nevertheless, even these estimates have value as they help to compile your composite market picture. To continue with the previous example, we'll start with the acaiberrysite.com. According to Quantcast, the site currently sees approximately 27,000 visitors a month, down from a peak of nearly 47,000 in early March 2009. This declining traffic would suggest that this particular type of product may be getting less popular than it once was. Although this is not directly relevant to the job you are doing, it nevertheless helps you to build up a more accurate picture of the market in which you are being asked to work, so it does have value. Beneath the chart, there is a detailed breakdown of the demographics of U.S. site visitors for this particular Acai Berry site. For this, you can clearly begin to see the value of using Quantcast in your research. For example, while you might imagine that the majority of potential prospects for a product of this type would be female, the demographics of this site suggest that there are slightly more male users than females. You can see that nearly 70% of site visitors are aged between 18 and 49, and that almost the same percentage are childless. But there is still more information to be found on the page, as on the right-hand side, there is a list of other websites that people who visit this one are likely to go to, together with an affinity rating which indicates how much more likely they are to visit these sites than an average net user. You can see that there are a few more Acai Berry sites that you can add to your list. For example, sites that are in exactly the same market. However, there are sites in the list that have nothing to do with acai berries or dieting, with several money and debt-related sites shown as an example. This is incredibly powerful information because it enables you to learn a great deal more about your targeted prospect, firstly from this list itself, and secondly by visiting the sites in question to learn more. For instance, the fact that the people who use this particular weight loss site also visit debt-related resources suggests that they might have money problems, a suggestion that is at least partially confirmed by the earning figures shown in the demographic chart seen earlier. If the sales copy you are writing is for a more expensive product, this information would be extremely relevant as it gives you some indication of how you need to target your copy if it is to be successful. For example, for a significant proportion of your potential prospects, money is likely to be an issue, and therefore you will have to focus on value for money. Yes, it costs this much, but just look at how much you get for the price when you write the sales page. Now, go back to your original Google search. Copy the URL of another site in this market and do the same again. This, for example, is what Quantcast has for acaiberryreports.net. Now you can see that there are far more women using this site than the previous one, which might suggest that their advertising is more targeted for women or that the sales page is more female-orientated. Whatever the reason, the main point is that this adds a bit more detail to the composite, perfect prospect picture that you are building up. To find out where the target audience lives, open alexa.com, paste in the site URL that you are investigating, click the Go button, and finally scroll a little way down the page to find the geographical makeup of the site audience. The audience for acaiberrysite.net is overwhelmingly U.S.-based, as would be expected, with the next largest single country prospect base being India. With lots of highly appropriate demographic information collected, the next step is to establish whether there is any money being spent in this market, because when money is being spent, there is also money to be made. This is a very simple step, as all you need to do is go back to your original Google search results page. A quick look at the page indicates that there is the maximum allowable number of 3 adverts at the top left corner of the results page, with another maximum 8 on the right-hand side. This immediately indicates that this is a market where there is plenty of money being made and spent. But for further confirmation of this, scroll to the bottom of the advertising skyscraper on the right-hand side of the page to click More Sponsored Links. Clicking this link pulls up a page that highlights how many advertisers are trying to get their advertising materials on the first Google search results page for the search term that you have used. There are 253 advertisers competing for the same search term. With that number of competitors in the market, the cost per click is going to be very high, proving that there is indeed plenty of money being spent and therefore made in this market. The final thing you need to do is research the market jargon, the insider language the people in this niche use when they are communicating or talking with other insiders. To find where these people congregate and communicate, you should search for niche-appropriate forum sites, because it is these sites that people use when they are looking for other net users with similar interests to theirs. To continue with the same example, I would search Google for acai berry forum or forums, because by default, Google will list the most popular forum sites at the top of the results page. In this example, there appears to be no specific acai berry forums, but there is plenty of information available in associated forums, such as on the weightloss.fitness.com forum site and the others shown here. In other markets or niches, you will, however, find lots of forum sites, so start by researching the ones that are most popular and work down. Remember that what you are attempting to do here is to infiltrate the insider language that people in this niche use when they are communicating with each other. Consequently, this is not something you can do overnight, as you need to find an active forum or two where you can lurk while building up your knowledge of insider vocabulary and language use. Once you have observed what is happening and what is being said for a while, you should have a reasonable degree of understanding and knowledge about what happens and the jargon being used. After you have reached this stage of reasonable knowledge, it is time to test what you think you have learned by getting involved in the forum yourself. In other words, you should start your own threads where you attempt to use the jargon of the market in the appropriate way. When you sign up for membership of the forum, I would not necessarily recommend that you use your proper name. Although there will probably be no real problem if you do, remember that you are using this as a test, and that until you have tested what you think you know, your reading of the situation may be completely wrong. If so, then other members of the forum might be more than willing to out you as an unwelcome alien, or even worse, some kind of scam artist, which is a tag that you definitely do not need attaching to your name. So, using a pen name as a way of protecting yourself against false accusations is generally a good idea. When you start posting threads of your own, try to do so in a way that is challenging, interesting, controversial, or shocking, as this is the best way of eliciting responses from other members. It is these responses that will really indicate just how far you have come, because if you use the appropriate jargon in your original thread, but don't go over the top, and receive replies in a similar vein, you immediately know that you're on the right lines. If not, you may need to do a little bit more research before trying again, with a different pen name. But once you learn the language that works in your niche, you have the secret key to your perfect prospect's purse, something that very few other copywriters will ever have. How much research and what to do with it? In the early days when you are first trying to find new clients for your business, you are not going to be snowed under with too much work. Consequently, when you're just starting out, it will pay you to go over the top in your research efforts, doing far more work than is justified by the fee you are going to be paid, as adopting this approach will ultimately benefit your business. In the first instance, the more research data you compile, the more professional and effective the copy that you produce is going to be. A high-quality professional sales page into which you have put a great deal of research is far more likely to sell a large number of products than a sales page that has just been thrown together with a minimum amount of background work. The more sales your copy generates, the quicker you are going to establish your reputation as someone who can write copy that sells, which, of course, makes it far easier to attract new clients and additional work. Another benefit of putting in this extra research in the early days is that you are still perfecting your craft and your ability to research properly. As this research ability will be an asset in the future, this represents another benefit that will ultimately put more money in your pocket. What I would also recommend is that when you are perfecting your research tactics, you write everything down, adding appropriate screenshots and the like, so that you have a detailed how-to research guide of exactly the way you do things on your computer. As a supplement or alternative to this written guide, you could create screenshot videos to demonstrate exactly what you do when you are researching. You can do this for a couple of reasons. Firstly, as a natural part of your research activities, it is likely that every so often you will discover a new trick or workaround that helps save time or improves the quality of your research results. If you include this in your plan, it ensures that you never forget these tricks, which can be important if they are things that you are likely to use only very occasionally. Secondly, and far more importantly, this how-to manual is something that you can give to someone else so that they can replicate exactly what you do to research your market. This is going to be invaluable once you start getting busy, because when that happens, you are no longer going to have the time available to personally undertake the depth of research you need to do. You are therefore going to have to find other people to do the research for you. Your guide enables them to do research in exactly the way you want it done from day one, meaning that you can be absolutely confident that the research results will be exactly what you need. As an example, if you do get to the stage where you are asked to create a new sales page for a different product every week, then you are probably going to need 4 assistants to do the research for you. Although finding research assistants is easy through sites like Elance or Get a Freelancer, getting them to do the job exactly the way you want is going to be a nightmare if you do not have a manual that goes into every tiny detail of the job required. You would waste several weeks writing it from scratch when you get to the stage where you need to outsource, or you can create the guide as you go along so that it is ready the instant it is needed.